The great hall of the hive was a cavern of living crystal and woven light, a place where the air itself hummed with a psychic melody known only to the Vex. It was here, upon the obsidian dais, that the queen of all Vex rested, her form a tapestry of iridescent chitin and gentle, glowing fronds. For 3 centuries she had ruled, her mind the serene center of a trillion-linked consciousness. But the song of the hive was growing thin, its harmonies predictable. Survival demanded a new note, a dissonant chord to spark an evolution. The progenitors, the ancient caretakers, had scoured the stars and returned with a candidate. A human. He stood before her now, a study in silent solidity. They had taken his ship, his weapons, his standard-issue environment suit, and clothed him in simple gray fabric. He was not tall by Vex standards, his frame lacking the elegant, multi-jointed limbs of her people. His skin was a peculiar, unmodulated tone, his eyes 2 focused spheres of deep brown, watching, waiting. The progenitors had listed his attributes: resilient, adaptable, possessed of a bizarre cognitive architecture they called independent linear persistence, a solitary, unlinked mind. To the queen, he seemed like a stone, and the hive needed a hammer. "You are called Michael," the queen's voice resonated, not in the air, but directly within his skull. It was a sound like distant wind chimes and deep root systems growing. "I am," he said, his voice a rough scrape against the psychic symphony. He did not flinch at the internal intrusion. "My children believe you possess a quality we have lost, a ferocity of self. Tonight you will be tested, not for strength or intellect, which are commonplace. You will be tested for worth. Should you fail, you will be returned to your vessel, your memory of this place dissolved. Should you pass, the path will change." Michael gave a single, slow nod. "What's the test?" The queen's fronds shimmered. "Survive the Garden of Echoes. Until dawn." Before he could ask, the floor beneath him dissolved into a cascade of light. He fell, not through space, but through layers of perception. The grand hall vanished, replaced by a landscape that defied physics. This was the Garden of Echoes, a psychic training ground where the hive's greatest warriors honed their minds. Here, thought and reality were cousins, and fear was the only predator. Michael landed on soft, phosphorescent moss. Giant, pulsing fungi formed trees, their caps shedding a dim blue light. The air was warm and thick, carrying whispers fragments of memories, both his and others. He saw a flash of his first ship, the smell of engine grease. Then a Vex memory of soaring through the vacuum, linked to 1,000 others. The echoes were disorienting, a cacophony of the past. He began to walk. The first test was subtle. The path ahead shimmered and split, offering 3 directions. One smelled of home, of baked bread and soil. Another echoed with the proud, strategic thoughts of a Vex battle hymn. The third was dark, silent, and cold. A lure, a pride, and a void. Michael closed his eyes against the sensory overload, focusing on the tactile feel of the moss under his bare feet. He chose the silent, dark path. Nostalgia was a trap. Alien pride was not his to claim. The darkness deepened, and the whispers coalesced into forms. From the gloom, shapes emerged. They were his own fears given flesh. A failing life support system on a derelict freighter, the accusing face of a lost crewmate, the vast, uncaring emptiness of space itself. They loomed, whispering of his insignificance. A Vex mind would have asserted its link to the hive, drawing collective strength to disperse the illusions. Michael had no such link. He had only himself. He did not run. He looked at the specter of the dead crewmate and spoke aloud, his voice steady in the oppressive quiet. "I remember you. I mourn you. But you are not here." He walked forward, directly through the apparition. It shattered like glass, not because he denied the fear, but because he acknowledged it and carried it anyway. The garden recoiled at the methodology. It was not suppression. It was integration. The next chamber was a lake of liquid thought. To cross, one had to still the waters, achieving perfect mental calm. The Vex did this through unison, their many minds becoming a placid whole. Michael sat at the shore, the waters churning with his anxieties, deadlines, combat drops, the quiet loneliness of the long haul. He tried to empty his mind, but human minds are never truly empty. So he did something else. He focused on a single, simple physical memory, the rhythm of welding, the precise drag of the rod, the smell of hot metal. A task, a purpose. The lake, reflecting this singular focused point, gradually stilled. He walked across on a bridge of solidified concentration. The queen watched all this from her dais. Her consciousness extended into the garden. The progenitors buzzed with displeasure. He cheats. He does not use the proper harmonies. He bypasses. He adapts, the queen corrected, a flicker of unfamiliar interest in her mental tone. He uses what he has. The final test was not an illusion. In a clearing under a false nebula bloomed the Guardian. It was a bioconstruct, a creature of the garden, taking the form of a perfect Vex warrior, tall, sleek, armed with a psychic blade that could sever neural pathways. It was the ultimate test of a Vex aspirant, to outthink and outmaneuver a superior, physical foe using mental agility. The Guardian attacked, a blur of chitin and light. Michael had no weapon, no psychic blade. He dodged the first strike, the hum of the mental edge passing inches from his face. He rolled, came up, and kept moving. The Guardian was faster, stronger. It anticipated where a Vex would move, how a linked mind would strategize. But Michael's mind was not linked. It was a wild, chaotic, linear thing. He did not try to fight the Guardian. He fought the garden. He remembered the pulsing fungi, the still lake, the unstable moss. He led the Guardian on a chase, not away, but through. He slammed his hand onto a pulsating fungus cap, and it erupted in a cloud of disorienting spores. He dashed back to the lake shore, skidded, and hurled a chunk of hardened thought ice at the Guardian's head. He used the environment, not as a Vex would to harmonize, but as a human would, as tools, as weapons, as chaos, not the Guardian. Programmed for a duel of minds and refined combat, faltered in the face of this undignified, pragmatic scramble. Michael, breathing heavily, covered in glowing moss and sap, saw his opening. As the Guardian recalibrated, he did not strike with a fist. He stood his ground, looked into the blank, luminous eyes of the construct, and projected not a battle command, but a single, powerful human concept. Enough. It was not an attack. It was a declaration. A boundary. The Guardian, designed to process psychic conflict, had no protocol for this. It froze, its systems parsing a command that was not a command, a defiance that was not an assault. The construct powered down, folding into itself. Dawn. A manufactured sunrise of soft gold light filtered through the crystalline canopy. The garden dissolved around Michael. He found himself back in the great hall, standing before the queen. He was bruised, smudged with alien flora, his simple clothes torn. But he stood upright, his eyes clear. The progenitors were silent, their disapproval a cold weight in the air. The queen rose from her dais, descending the steps until she stood before him. Her psychic presence washed over him, no longer testing, but examining. She saw the solitude he carried, not as a weakness, but as a core. She saw the pragmatic resilience, the ability to bend reality to his will, not through harmony, but through sheer, stubborn focus. He was the dissonant chord, and the hive song needed it. You did not face the tests. The queen's voice echoed in him, now touched with something like awe. You faced the purpose of the tests. You did not still the waters. You used their stillness. You did not defeat the fear. You walked with it. You did not conquer the guardian. You declared the conflict over. Michael met her gaze. I survived. That was the test. It was, the queen agreed. But the test was not for you to prove you could be one of us. She extended a slender, chitinous hand. A crown hovered above her palm, not of metal, but of intertwined light and shadow, a symbol of the hive mind itself. The test was to prove we needed one of you. The hall held its breath. The progenitor shuddered. A solitary mind cannot rule a linked consciousness, a progenitor protested, its mental voice sharp. He will not rule the consciousness, the queen said, her fronds casting prismatic patterns on the walls. He will be its compass, its anchor in the storm of individuality we must now embrace. He will be the crown of singular will. He will teach us to be alone, so that together we may become something new. She looked at Michael, the human who had used welding techniques to cross a lake of thought. Will you bear this? Not to command, but to challenge. Not to dictate, but to question. Michael looked at the crown of impossible light. He thought of the empty void of space and the warmth of a shared purpose. He was a stone. But perhaps a stone was what this beautiful, fragile crystal empire needed to sharpen itself against. He reached out. His human fingers, calloused and solid, closed around the spectral crown. It did not burn. It did not sing. It settled, cool and heavy, a weight of profound responsibility. A new note, strong and steady, resonated through the psychic network of the Vex hive, a note of solitary resilience. The alien queen had tested him for one night, and deemed him worthy of the crown.